I, 32 female, live with my partner, 44 male, and work in research. My primary colleague, 30 male, and I have worked together for 2 years on a major project involving significant intellectual and labor contributions from us both. The project is expected to span at least another 2 years, and it's vital to both of our careers. Not long ago, my colleague confessed to me that he is, and has been, infatuated or in love with me for pretty much the duration. It took place via a long email that was written after an evening of drinking. This was totally unexpected. In retrospect, there may have been some signs, but nothing that wouldn't just as easily be accounted for by a considerate personality. Shortly after this confession, I came to my husband with the issue. I wanted to get his advice about the situation and showed him the drafts which I had composed to organize my thoughts on the matter. They stated unequivocally that I am not interested in a romantic relationship and hope these feelings won't complicate our work together. I was again surprised at my husband's reaction. He seemed offended, to think that I must have invited my colleague's affections and that I should immediately quit my job, as in put in notice tomorrow. I was so taken aback, my immediate reaction was to laugh, snort at this suggestion. That would be utterly disastrous for my career and isn't an option that I'm willing to consider. I greatly prefer the entire scenario had never happened, as a difficult and lengthy project hangs in the balance, but I have no real concern at this point about my colleague forcing the issue or letting it compromise our work. It seemed like an intoxicated getting my feelings off my chest. I'll need to put a lot of thought and caution into how I proceed with the work dynamic, but abandoning our project isn't even on the table. About a week has passed. My husband has been alternating between irate and silent treatment and suggested several times that I should move out of the house to be with my new spouse. Today, I swung by the house on my lunch break and found all the locks changed and my luggage on the patio. Obviously, he can't possibly intend for me to really move out and is just pulling what I absolutely believe to be an asshole-ish power sulk. But seeing how seriously he's taking this has my doubts up. Maybe I was ultimately too uncompromising when I refused to even entertain quitting my job for the sake of our conversation and his feelings. So, am I in the wrong for not quitting my job over a colleague's crush? Part 2. Not quitting my job over a colleague's crush. So my husband called me. Long story short, he's been extremely anxious each day when I leave for work and buckled from the pressure today. I'm welcome back home once I've quit my job, which is obviously still unacceptable. I'm considering taking a week of accrued paid leave, which will hopefully result in an adult conversation with my husband, as well as coming to a decision about how to best handle colleague. With that feeling, I'm hearing the word lawyer loud and clear throughout these comments. I'm grateful for all the support and perspective. I ended up calling my sister 38 female, something I avoided initially because I didn't want to stir the pot by involving family members who already dislike my husband. I'm currently with her and my cousin 35 male, who are both supportive. Our plan is to call a locksmith tomorrow to regain access to the property. Husband can ruminate with friends or at a hotel for the present. For cousin to collect some important things of mine from the house and for me to stay with my sister for a few days while I take a hard look at my situation and options. I'm not set on divorce at this point, but I definitely need to reassert some basic boundaries before exploring further discussion with my husband. My husband tried to bar my cousin from entering the family home to retrieve my things, which escalated into a physical confrontation. The police arrived and both husband and cousin were made to leave the premises. My sister and I changed the locks the next day to secure the house, and I'm staying with my family for a little while I plan my next move, which in all likelihood will probably be a divorce.
One time I met a man in a grocery store and he asked me for my number and I said yes. And I was also fresh off of a breakup, and sometimes when I'm fresh out of a breakup, I don't always make smart choices. So when he later contacted me to tell me that he wanted to take me into the backwoods in his Jeep as our first date, I was like, sure, why not? So we go into his Jeep, we go into like the back country, off the road, way into the woods, and we saw many moosin, like a lot of them, and baby moosin, and I was like, what's gonna happen if one of them charges your Jeep? And he was like, I don't know, but it'd be a crazy story for later. And then the night fell, we're in the woods, I have no cell reception. He like drives up to this lookout point and he had a jammock, which is like a hammock that you put on top of your Jeep. So we both climbed into the jammock on top of the Jeep, and we're on the jammock and we're looking at the stars, and he turns to me and he was like, hey, you just met me like last week at the grocery store. And I said, yeah. And he said, and then I asked you to go into the woods on our first date with me alone, and there's no cell reception. And I said, yeah. And he's like, aren't you worried that I'm gonna kill you or something? And I was like, well, I am now. Totally ruined the vibe for the rest of the day. Let me tell you, why would you say that? What?
My husband is reluctant to be intimate with me after I was in a major accident. I, 30 female, have been married to my husband, 45 male, for 5 years and together for 8. Obviously, we have an age gap in our relationship, and whether we've discussed possible health issues or medical care, it was regarding him. About 4 months ago, I was in a car accident. I was talking on Bluetooth to my husband because I was nervous driving on the icy roads going to our house when another car rounded a corner too fast and lost control. It was one of those exact wrong moment things, and my car went off the road and into a tree. My husband heard the whole thing, and my last memory before I lost consciousness was him screaming my name. I don't want to get into the bloody details, but I ended up being in the hospital for over a month. I needed multiple surgeries and have been in physical therapy ever since. I am finally getting to the point where I feel like myself again and I'm no longer in pain. I've gained back some weight and look good if I do say so myself. My husband literally worked out of my hospital room for the entire time I was there. He went home to shower, sleep, and look after the dogs, then came right back. He attended all my therapy appointments so he would know how to better help me recover at home. He was amazing and everything I could ask him to be in that kind of horrible situation. I love him so much. And so yesterday, while shopping, I saw this gorgeous black lingerie set and decided to surprise him. Don't cry.
Sorry.
You're gonna make me cry. We haven't had since before the accident, and every time I try, it feels like he makes an excuse or expresses some concern about some random body part of mine that is no longer injured. He was on his laptop in bed when I came in wearing my new purchase, and I could tell he was taken by surprise. He was definitely... But then he lost it and pushed me away, saying that we shouldn't rush this and he doesn't want to jeopardize my recovery with... I was crying by the time he ended the sentence and said, I'm fine. The doctors say is fine. But he was already walking into the bathroom and turning on the shower. I don't know what to think. Is it the scars? Is the memory of me in a hospital bed, unable to even sit up by myself, repelling him? I finally am starting to feel good about myself and my body again. And the fact that he won't touch me is really hurting my mental health. It's probably a long shot, but has anyone else experienced this?
I'm just so glad that I'm picking up that he's just more worried about her well-being. Because when he first said this story, like, I was literally about to lose it, thinking that she went through this traumatic experience and then her husband was just like not interested in her anymore.
I do have an update. Last night when we got in bed, I curled up next to my husband and held him while I said basically, quote, we've been through a lot. Would you be willing to get therapy with me to make sure everything is all right for both of us? I love you so much and I don't want any underlying trauma to affect our relationship. He was silent for about 10 seconds and then the floodgates opened. I've only seen him cry once or twice in our entire relationship. At our wedding and the first time I told him I loved him. But I held him while he sobbed for what was probably an hour. He kept apologizing for it and I had to keep saying, don't be sorry. I'm here. Cry if you need to cry.
My heart. Oh my God. Okay.
And I shed some of my own tears. It was an exhausting but ultimately extremely cathartic experience. When it was all over and he was able to say more than a few words, he told me that there was about 15 minutes when he was sure he had just heard the love of his life die. Then we got to the hospital and the doctors made it clear they would do everything they could, but the extent of my injuries were extreme and severe. Then he spent hours calling family members, waiting, pacing, and trying to grapple with the fact that I might die and he might be alone. Then I spent 5 days in the ICU, mostly unconscious. He said he's never known fear like that in his life. In the end, we agreed to go to individual and couples therapy and even touched on the thing, wherein he admitted that he knows objectively nothing bad will happen to me if we have sex. But for some reason, it is sparking this protective instinct that makes him want to treat me like glass. So we're working on it. And our marriage is amazing. He's the love of my life, and we can get through this.
They're so cute. It's like sad. There's so many emotions that I had throughout that entire story.
Yeah.
It's like beautiful and sad.
And there's another update.
Okay.
Someone commented on the original one. No, I'm not crying at 7 a.m. You are. And OP responded, when this man said for better or worse, he really, really meant it. When I wrote that, I was in a weird place. Physically, I had mostly healed, but I was determined to shove down any emotional trauma because I was so exhausted from the previous months of work trying to heal my body. I wanted to be all right, and I wanted my marriage to be the same as it was before the accident. My husband and I just attended our 3rd marriage counseling appointment, and I'm very happy to report the exercises and worksheets we've been given are helping rebuild the husband and wife relationship instead of the caregiver/patient relationship, which has been present for the last 5 months. My husband just had his first individual therapy appointment a few days ago, and I have mine next week. In short, we're putting in the work. We're also having again, like a lot of I feel silly bragging about that to the internet at large, but it makes me so happy that we've figured out that part of all of this. Prior to the accident and really throughout our whole relationship, we've been so ridiculously into each other. It was rare we even skipped a day. I missed having that connection to him, and he was clearly hurting too. Anyways, I just thought everyone deserved an update. Little
That's
cuties. Wow.
She sounds like an amazing person.
I think like after any major trauma, accident, things like that, like everyone could benefit from therapy. Everyone can benefit from therapy on a daily basis. But this makes me really, really happy.